Okay, how many of you are mompreneurs? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, I know I can't actually see which one of you are raising your hands right now, but I feel it. I feel that zest and that energy. For those of you that just threw up your hands, congratulations, because you're in good company. One, I am one today, and so is my guest. Now, if you aren't one, or maybe you're kind of unsure whether or not you would declare yourself as one, you clicked on this episode for a reason today. And it is that desire, that honor that I am going to honor today and share with you about this topic that so many of you can relate to. Juggling business and babies, right? As a mompreneur, you have that dichotomy in your heart. You want to build a successful business, but you also want to be there for your little ones. So how do you balance it all? Well, my guest today, Fiona, is an expert on this topic because she's done it and she's helped others do it too. Today, she's going to share her secrets and how to make it all work. So get ready to learn some valuable tips and strategies on how to build a thriving business while raising your little ones. Let's get after it, mama. Excuse me, mamapreneur. Hey, mama, welcome to the Energized Mama podcast. Do you want a better work-life balance and more time and energy? Do you find yourself thinking, how can I add more hours into the day? Or are you Googling how to deal with mom guilt and can my marriage survive toddlers? Do you wake up with big goals only to feel overwhelmed and defeated when you have no one to help you and your littles aren't listening to you again? Hey, I'm Cheyanne. I too was an exhausted mom away from the help of my family. I too felt constantly drained with a strong-willed toddler and wished I could find balance between being a wife, a mom, stepmom, and entrepreneur. I wanted more energy to give myself and my husband, to discipline my kids confidently, and incorporate faith into our home. All the things, right? But I kept telling myself that I couldn't do it feeling this exhausted and without a community supporting around me. Until I found a healthy balance and endless energy in raising Jesus-loving littles. In this podcast, you will find that too. You will find time and energy boosting tips and tricks, guidance for disciplining your littles, and what to do when you have no help so that you will find balance between all your roles. Stop feeling drained and learn to trust your own mom tuition. Time to grab those headphones, pour that green smoothie, and get ready to get your daily energy boost. I've got you, mama. Before we launch into today's episode, I wanted to share with you a recent review that came in from Melinda D. She titled her review "A Village Without Borders." She says, "Moms, this is such a great podcast for support and encouragement for raising littles, period, but especially raising them away from the support of home and family. My kids are grown, but I have grandchildren who live a few hours away. Cheyanne helped me see a perspective I had not considered as a nana. She is knowledgeable, godly, and cares about all moms who want to ensure Jesus is central in their homes. If you haven't listened, tune in right away and learn to balance motherhood with family and work. What a blessing Cheyanne is to all you moms out there." Wow, Melinda, thank you so much. What a blessing this review was to me, and I'm so honored to share it today on the Energized Mama podcast. Hello, ladies of Mom Nation. Welcome to another episode here where we are aiming to find balance, gain more energy, and raise Jesus-loving littles. Now, if this isn't your second, third, or 100th episode, if this is your first time, I am so happy you've made it here today, specifically when it comes to this episode, because this is one I've been so pumped up and so excited to record for you because it is a topic that I keep coming across everywhere. I mean, I cannot help but talk about this topic, whether it's in the grocery store, if it's online in my private Facebook group, if it's just moms I'm sending voice messages to across the ocean. It is about having a life outside of your mom life, because moms, if you're anything like me, I am quite obsessed with my little ones. They are my just passion, my heart, my joy. But at the end of the day, I don't want to just have my whole life be about them, right? It's like when we're a mom, it's a great reflection and look in the mirror of saying like, okay, I'm teaching them this, but what am I also showing? And do I want their lives to revolve all around their kids someday or around their family? And where I believe it's a beautiful priority to have in life, it's not the only purpose that I believe God has put in our lives as women. So knowing that and knowing that that is such a desire of your hearts too, because you've been telling me seen the reviews you've been leaving. You've been talking about it in the Facebook group. I wanted to bring on a very special guest today. And I have a new sister from the same mister, a new friend that I'm so excited to introduce you to today. Her name is Fiona Mensah, and she is the founder of Woman Powered Within. And her whole dream, her mission is to help working faith-filled women, mamas, free up more time to thrive in business, to thrive in their well-being and their family life. And so with that trifecta right there, I'm like, I want that. I want more of that. And I want more of you ladies to have that. So without further ado, it is such a true honor and blessing for me today to welcome my guest, Mrs. Fiona Mensah, to the Mom Nation podcast. Hello, beautiful lady.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here.
You are more than welcome. I still remember the moment that I first found you in the like Christian entrepreneurial mamas Facebook group, and your just energy was so bright and so beautiful. And reading through like your content and your mission statement, I was like, I got to know this woman. Like, I've got to learn from her. I've got to know her. And so I'm so happy that we've connected and that you've offered to be here today.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. And like you said, the first conversation I had with you, I was like, yes, this is the woman that I can see myself being with. Like, you are an amazing woman. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And ladies, I promise I didn't pay her to say that, although I may like get your PayPal account after this, because that was just too kind and too good. But you're in a great space today, because I know the women listening, this is exactly their heart's intention as well. And before we dive into exactly what it is that you do, and also how you can help guide and serve us as women who want to build a business and have that family life, let's really quickly, I would love to hear about your family life. And would you mind just giving us a quick little intro about who you are, where you're from, and what your family is and all about?
Yeah, well, like I said, my name's Fiona. I'm based in London, UK. I'm wife to my husband. We've been married for 9.5 years. This year is our 10-year anniversary, and I've kind of been hinting, so hopefully he doesn't forget. I have 3 children, 3 children aged 8 down to 3. And I also have 2 businesses. So I'm not only a life and planning coach, but I also make memory quilt keepsakes. And that was my first ever baby. So I've been in the game for quite a while now. I started my first business when my first child was 5 months old. And that in itself is a roller coaster, but that's a story for another day, unless we've got the time. But it's been an amazing journey that I've been on. And I'm so happy that now I'm at a place where I can now help other women get on their journey and get to where they need to be in their business and in their life.
Wow. Yes. Oh my goodness. There's some details right there I didn't know about your background, and I'm already like, okay, you can't talk about keepsakes and quilts when I'm like 30, almost 34 weeks pregnant at this point. I'm like, give me all the things. But what I love there, that one thing that, again, I'm like, oh my gosh, it just right there shows why you're the perfect person to talk on this topic, is you started a business when your baby was 5 months old. And I think that is something that is so scary to so many moms to imagine, especially when they're so young. And again, this podcast is directed at moms of littles. So we're talking to moms that have children 5 years or younger. Yeah. And I notice a lot of women, even including my own mom, she also was an entrepreneur and business owner when I was really young. And so many moms, I think, have that mindset of like, well, when my kids are this age, or when my kids, go to school, or when I have money to afford baby, there's all these things, right? All these milestones we think. And so often I've talked to moms that say, but you'll get there and you'll still always find a reason not to do it. If you're afraid or trepidatious. So what I want to know, Fiona, is, again, from your own experience, but now from also coaching other moms, other women through this, is where should a mom begin? Like, what are some of the first steps that a mom who has the desire, even while having littles at home, she wants to start a business, what are first steps that she can take without sacrificing her family?
Right. So before I answer that question, I actually do want to touch a bit about my journey when I did start my business. So when I started my business, like I said, my my eldest now, she was 5 months old, and I must have been 3 weeks into this new venture, but I was feeling extremely tired, exhausted all the time. And initially I just thought, well, I have a 5-month-old, I'm breastfeeding, I'm waking up all sorts of time in the middle of the night. So that's exactly what it is. But little did I know that my daughter's little brother was destined to make an appearance 9 months later. So I had gone to the doctor and said, this is how I'm feeling. And he said, no, your vitamin D levels are not low. Your iron is not low, because that's why I went in. I thought, oh, it must be my iron. I've experienced that before. I know what it feels like when your levels are low and you're exhausted. He said, no. Could it be that you're pregnant? And I looked at him like, okay,
No
now
way.
I know you're there's no way on this earth that I could be pregnant and I have a 5-month-old. But little did I know that actually there was a way on this earth that I could be pregnant, and I was. And so now at this point, I have 2 babies under the age of 2, and I could have given up on my dream at that point, and I could have said, you know what, let me wait until the youngest is in nursery and I have the time. But I actually carried on. I was determined to make this dream a reality. And so for those of you who are, thinking about having a business and you're thinking, oh gosh, I've got small children at home, how can I do this? I have a spouse, I have maybe church commitments, aging parents, whatever it is, that it is possible. And some of the things I wish I knew at that time, I'm going to share with you now. So to answer your question, what are the first steps? I think the first and most important step is praying for the right attitude and for God's strength. Because what I found is that mindset is everything. You can wake up in the morning and you can have the wrong mindset and it affects your whole day. You could wake up in the morning, have the right mindset, and your day might not go according to plan, but because you have that right mindset, you get through that day. So step 1, pray for the right attitude and pray for God's strength. Because as Christians, everything we do is according to God's will. We want to do it according to God's will. We need his strength in order to get through the days that we go through. Secondly, I'd say write the vision, write down your vision, what it is that you want to do. You need to have that clarity. And it's so easy to have all the dreams and all the things you want to do in your head, but until you've put it down on paper, it's just whirling around in your head, and you need that clarity. And I've also found that we have these dreams, we have these things we want to maybe achieve or do, but until you know yourself, until you know what your strengths and maybe your weaknesses are, it's going to be hard to take those steps necessary. It's easy to work with your strengths, but if you can identify what your weaknesses are and maybe have a plan in place in order to turn them into strengths, that will really help you on your journey.
Wow, that's so empowering, right? Because I feel that we very often either are unaware of our weaknesses. Sometimes they can be hiding in the distance, right? Or they're so in focus, it's hard to imagine what we do with these. How can they be helpful? But I love what you just said is like, hey, it's like knowledge is power sometimes, right? Like knowing, okay, I teach a lot with my clients. Like we talk a lot about acceptance. It's like, instead of trying to change it, instead of trying to control it, there are things we just can't change or control. And sometimes it's very circumstantial. It's very the season you're in, just giving a healthy amount of acceptance and saying, okay, this is something I struggle with. I love that is even when it comes to your business, that's also something that's very empowering actually by, just accepting it and owning it and focusing on how can I use this for almost like turning it into a strength.
Yeah. And I've also found that when we have these dreams, when we have these ambitions that we feel like maybe this is the time to start, we kind of feel that everyone around us is going to be in support. And sometimes it's not the case. And, you know, I met you in one of the business groups, and one thing I found, and I've seen people coming to me about this over and over again, is that my spouse wasn't on board. My spouse didn't get it. And sometimes that can be very frustrating if you don't have, if the very people you think should be supporting you aren't supporting you. It can be very disheartening. So one of the things I always say is, when you're about to start on the journey, talk to your spouse. Sometimes they're not as supportive because they don't understand. It's not their dream, it's not their vision. God gave it to you. And so that maybe they just need the clarity over it. And sometimes they're operating out of fear. They love you so much that they want you to make certain steps or take certain decisions because of a fear that they have. So sitting down with your spouse is one of the best things you can do. I remember when I started my keepsake business, my husband was like, well, what's the point? I don't understand. Why are you cutting children's clothes up to put it onto a quilt when you could just keep it in the loft? And it was from me talking to him about it over and over again, he finally understood. And because I had spent so much time talking to him about it over and over again, my mission, my focus was so clear that I could talk to anyone about it. And so talking to your spouse is really good.
Yeah. I actually like that. If anything has been the most golden tip you've given today, it's because I know that that is also so half the battle, right? Is like, you have this vision and you feel it so deep inside. And so I love that, like, your second tip was like, first of all, like, get it out, get that vision out. And it can be so hard for us to kind of like figure out, how do we speak this out? How do we describe to people? Because something women in business, you know, mamas listening, that you will get the question over and over is, what do you do? And sometimes it is so much easier to just spill out a role. If you work, especially if you work for a company, it's like, oh, I work for this and I do this. And sometimes that's where it just stops. But there's something about people who want to ask so much more about entrepreneurs, because it's just, that is not the norm. Like, to follow an entrepreneurial goal is going against the societal norm. So I feel like people are intrigued. And so it can feel very overwhelming to sometimes share like what it is that you do. But I love that, like, practice with your husband, because if anybody on this podcast listening has been married, even probably just for more than a few weeks or months, knows that sometimes men don't always connect or understand things the first time around, right? It's like, and that's the gift there. That right there to me is like a strength hidden in weakness. We may think, oh my gosh, my husband's so frustrating. Why doesn't he just get it? Or God, is this the right thing? Or even like, I don't want to tell him because I know his reaction. But I love that you flipped the switch. Like, I love that you said, no, ladies, like, involve him and see it as a tool to actually help make your business better, because you're going to have that time to rehearse and to get clear, like, on that vision. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, and something else I think of, Fiona, when I think of, okay, so you have this, so this mom's like, okay, so I've prayed about this. I feel a clarity. I feel like I know where I'm going. I have the vision. It's there in front of me and I'm good. So often what I have encountered myself, because I've now also, I was an entrepreneur before I had kids. And now, since adding kids into the picture really throws it for a loop, right? But I've been a mompreneur of sorts for 3 years. I noticed that there is so much that when I have clarity and I know where I'm going, sometimes it's the time. It's knowing what to do now that I know where I'm going. How does this look in a more practical sense? How do I like tactically go about this? So I'm curious if, like, you know, cause you've been doing this for, you said your daughter is now 8 years old, is it? Okay. So you've almost had a decade under your belt of balancing mom and business, right? So I'm curious, like, are there common mistakes or things that you see moms do, or maybe that you even experience, especially in the beginning when it comes to time and time management, that you could, lay out for us to make sure that we look out for?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've been in the productivity world for any amount of time, you'll know that there's so many tools and systems out there that people use to help with time management. But if you don't know the underlying cause of your lack of time management, the tools just won't work for you. So many people, want to be productive. They want to, fit A, B, and C into the time that they have. But if you don't have the right systems, you get stuck. And so they come to me, this is what we kind of like dig deeper and try and uncover. Because a common mistake that I find is people will follow the gurus rather than following their own rhythms. So if you get to the underlying cause, you can then use the system that will work for you. So for example, if you are feeling really overwhelmed, you've got 101 things to do, you're not sure where to start, me telling you to have a to-do list, which probably has about 50 things on it already, isn't going to work for you. It's going to increase your overwhelm. However, maybe the issue might be priorities. So once you've identified the underlying cause, which is overwhelm, we need to then identify what your priorities are. So the common underlying causes that I found from working with mums is overwhelm, fear, and guilt, mum guilt. Those three are major. And what I find is, generally speaking, people tend to think, I have to do it all and I have to do it now. Yeah, and when you break that down, that's down to priorities and boundaries. And so the Christian women that I work with, they all aspire to be like the Proverbs 31 woman. And she basically did it all. And when they read it, they see it as her husband called her blessed, her children called her blessed because she was doing it all by herself. But actually, when you read between the lines, she wasn't doing it all by herself. She had her servants who were helping her. And so really, the two main things that I find that people, the time management issues in business or in family is priorities and boundaries. If you don't have priorities, if you don't know what is the most important thing right now in this moment, you're going to struggle. And for some people, even when they do know what the most important thing is, they struggle with boundaries. They struggle with saying no to other people. They may even struggle with saying no to their kids. And when they do say no to their kids, that's when mum guilt comes in. Because it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to spend all this time with my children, but then your business is being neglected. And then when you are spending time in your business, you feel like your children are being neglected. But if you can work on your priorities and your boundaries, I believe those two things will really help with your time management.
Yes. Oh, hallelujah. I'm sure if the ladies are watching the recording over here, I am like shaking my head up and down like, yes, lady. Yes, yes, yes. Like preach, Fiona. Hey, girlfriend. Yes, mama, I'm talking to you. I have a question for you. Do you wish that there was a way to stop feeling emotionally drained by your life as a mom of littles? Or how about have more energy for your husband without constantly feeling physically exhausted? I know what it feels like to want more from your life than just being a mom. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed with where to begin to stop the stress in my everyday life and to have absolutely no idea what healthy habits to implement in my own home that'll actually make a difference. I know what it feels like to be totally lost and how to create a realistic and sustainable plan that works for me and not everyone else. And just to basically think, I just can't be energetic while I parent a household full of littles that demand so much of me. And, well, at least one that doesn't rely on either coffee for energy or wine to de-stress. Am I right? Let's take a moment and imagine if you no longer felt completely exhausted at the end of your day. What if you had the time to go on dates with your husband and you had the energy to give yourself some much needed me time and you had easy to implement systems and strategies that would allow you to be that energetic and vibrant mama that you want to be, all while still raising your kids the way you want? Well, I have great news for you. That's why I created the More Energy Method, a customized blueprint to clear your chaos and bring back more energy into your everyday life. It's where I teach you to decrease stress while increasing your energy. Win-win. You'll be able to stick with this super simple plan, tailor-made for you, mama, that will establish new healthy habits that'll unlock energy without taking away focus from your kids or require huge commitments of time. You'll walk away with crystal clear clarity of exactly what to focus on, with a plan that'll help you know exactly how to do it and the confidence as a woman, wife, and mother to make the changes you need to and to keep them for good. So if you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and exhausted the moment you wake up and instead trade that in for feeling rejuvenated throughout the day and go to bed satisfied, even as a busy mom of littles, then head right now to energyformoms.com and grab hold of my Blast Off to Summer special where you will get $40 off. Did you know that the average cost of drinks on a date night is $40? Hey, consider that my gift from me to you and your husband, mama. Now, this offer expires July 31st, so don't miss out. Head on over to energyformoms.com. It's time to lose the stress while gaining yourself back and have endless amounts of energy for yourself, for your husband, and a life beyond just your littles.
Because that's so true. And I think the tricky thing is sometimes figuring out what your priorities are, or like, I think you said it so beautifully, is what are your boundaries? Because sometimes we do, I think I noticed this with moms, like we try to focus on one or the other, but it does seem to be this like cohesiveness coming together, especially if you want, to be a Proverbs 31 woman, as you said, because I believe a part of in that verse, it also says about how she has a calm and gentle spirit, or a kind and gentle spirit, or right. And it's like, okay, how can I do that while doing all this other stuff? Because it's one thing to do all that other stuff, but if it creates in you, for lack of a better word, a monster or someone that you don't want to be, then it is where we got to take that step back. Exactly. I like that. Take that step back, look at your priorities, look at your boundaries, and, girl, if you can like get me the number of some servants, like I'm so down with that life. Because, the Proverbs 31 woman had that. So I like to look at them as my little feet that pitter patter that came out of me, Maybe we'll do another episode on that about how you can empower your kids to help you or live that servanthood life. But yeah, no, that's great. And I love that practicality of figuring out your boundaries and your priorities. And I guess to wrap up, coming towards the end of our time together, but to really think about, okay, so now that I have those two things, I see almost like two things juxtaposition, right, on both sides. It brings me to that thought of balance, right? It brings me back because not only do people, not only do moms, not only do women desire to balance their priorities and their boundaries, but ultimately, once a mom has a clear vision and when she decides and says like, yes, I do want this, I do believe God's leading me in this life of being a business owner and also a mom at the same time, even with all these great strategies, like how do I make sure that I balance my life as a mom, as a wife, and as a business owner, especially, if you have any insight, even though I know your kiddos are a little bit older now, but, and your youngest is 3, is it? Is your youngest?
Yeah.
Yes. So moms, she's still in the littles category. She still has a little at home. So even better, right, is like how, or can you give any type of wisdom to a mom who says like, okay, I know I have this business, I'm clear on it, I know what I want to do, I realize that I have to balance my priorities and my boundaries, but how can I make sure that I balance my business with my family, especially when my kids are still little?
I say be realistic for you and your family, because it's going to look different for everyone. And sometimes, especially with how social media is, we can easily compare ourselves to others who maybe, in the business world, they say, do your research your competitors. And sometimes you might look and see and think, wow, she's doing all these amazing things. All her Instagram pictures show that her house is always tidy. She's always got a full face of makeup. Her baby's always smiling and laughing. And the saddest thing is, it's so easy to fall into that trap of comparison. So you have to be realistic for you and your family. What does that look like for you. And understand the season that you're in. Focus on what matters in the season that you're in. So I could be in business, Cheyanne's in business, you're in business, but we have different children, different ages for our children. You know, you might have a newborn at home, or you might have a 2-year-old toddler, and that season is going to look very different. I must admit, even though I had 2 young children under the age of 2, it was easier than it is now that I have a toddler running around, because the baby has their naps, they fall into their routine. I know when she's going to have her nap, and I'll do a bit of work while she's having her nap. But then when you have a toddler who's 2 or 3 and they want all of your time, it's a different season, and it's going to look different for you. So you can't do the things maybe you would have been doing like a year ago as compared to maybe now, because you're in a different season. And one thing I always shout from the rooftop is the power of routines. Now, whenever I talk about routines, I always hear people go, oh, routines, that's so mundane.
Right. Don't stop the episode now. Keep listening.
But there is power in routines for yourself, for your family. Children, generally, they work well with routines. Children work well with boundaries. When they say that children test the boundaries, but they test the boundaries to feel safe. They want to know, is mummy going to crack, or is mummy still going to be there? When mummy says no, does she mean no? When mummy says yes, does her yes mean yes? And when you have routine and those boundaries in place, it's not only great for the kids, but it's also great for you. If you don't have a morning routine, I'd advise you to get one. And your morning routine doesn't have to look like what, they all say, wake up at 5 a.m. and meditate and pray and do that. It's down to you, because if you've been up until 2 a.m. feeding a newborn, there's no way you're going to be able to wake up at 5 a.m. You have to find the morning routine that's going to work for you. But having that routine takes away the stress, it takes away the overwhelm, because it just happens. It happens day by day, in and out. You know what's coming next. And then from that, I'd say adapt small, sustainable habits. It's really easy to say, this is my dream, this is my business, this is what I want to do. And then you put 110% into it, but then you might crash before you've even began. It's so much easier to start with smaller steps. Take that one step and then build that up. And you'll find that over time, you then get to where you need to be. Right. And with that being said, you break your goals into small steps. Break those goals down, because it can seem so overwhelming if you just have that big picture. But if you're able to break down your goals, you kind of create that balance for yourself, because you're not feeling overwhelmed. Right. And I also want to say, I have so many things running through my head right now. Have a plan. Planning is, I would say, one of the most important things you could do, along with the routines, because if you have a plan, it takes away the mental brain energy that you have to use all the time. When you have a plan, things seem to flow into the next thing, the one thing into the next thing. And what mums tend to do is, even if they do have a plan, they have everything on that plan apart from themselves. You have to add yourself into the plan, into your daily routine. And that includes self-care. Now, when self-care is thrown around a lot, and some people don't like the word self-care because they feel like, oh, it's being selfish. But actually, the best thing you can do for your family, your children, and even your spouse is to have an element of self-care for yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're struggling to balance, you get depleted in energy, and you need to restore that energy. And it could be going for a walk, having 20 minutes to yourself. There was a time where I used to go into the bathroom, close the door behind me, and just turn off the light and just sit in the bathroom by myself. And okay, I wouldn't get the full 20 minutes to myself, because obviously somebody would come and knock on the door and say, Mommy, where are you? But Having that time to myself, it really helped. Whether it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it was something that I could do for myself. And I would come out of that bathroom feeling a bit more energized, a bit more ready to face the kids in the house and my spouse as well. Allow for flexibility, because you're a mum, you're not going to have it go the way you want it to go all the time. Something always pops up, especially with the kids. Just yesterday, my youngest, she's come out in a rash. And so I'm going to have to take her to the GP. And I did have plans, but I have to allow for flexibility.
Yeah.
I like to call it white space. If you use a planner, don't fill out your planner, have some white space in your planner, because things happen. And it's hard to find the balance. And you've got a plan for everything and you don't have any flexibility, you're going to feel really, really overwhelmed. You're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't been able to do X, Y, and Z. But if you allow flexibility, you can put X where Y is and put Y where Z needs to be.
Right.
But if you have the ability to delegate, like I mentioned, the Proverbs 31 woman, she did it. Delegate where possible. My 3-year-old, I've got her doing like little house chores now, and she loves it because we've turned it into a game. So I'll say, oh, the washing machine stopped now. Let's see how quick you can get all the stuff out of the washing machine. Sometimes it does take about 20 minutes because she forgets, and then she has to go back and then go take something out and then goes back again. But it's getting her into the habit of doing something where it's not always mummy. Your husband, your spouse can be doing some things in the house as well. And that might free up some time for you. And my last point is deal with the overwhelm, because it's going to look different for everyone. But your mind, your time, and your energy is going to differentiate between a successful mum in business and a mum who is constantly striving in her business and missing out on quality time with her family. Yes. If you can work on your mind and your time and your energy, that's it. You've got it. You've got the balance. But I'd say out of the 3, the energy is probably the most important one, because if you don't have the energy, it doesn't matter how much mindset work you've done. It doesn't matter how organized you are with your time if you can't get up and go. So you have to work on your energy. Get your energy to a place where now you feel like, okay, I can rule the world. I feel balanced enough to rule the world, that I can put a plan in place, I can execute it, and I know that I will get to where I need to be. Yes. So those are my things.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm just loving it, because it's funny, Fiona, what you just touched on is exactly what I walk moms through in my brand new course that I created called the More Energy Method. Because I realized, and I was so guilty of this, and this is how I know it, this is how I created this, is so often I think moms, like, the word energy gets thrown around and we kind of know like we need more of it. And so often I see moms as problem solvers, right? It's like we see a problem and we want to execute, we want to go for it. So many moms I've noticed go for like, well, how can I have more energy? How can I incorporate that into my life? Instead of what I teach moms is, before we learn to fuel your boat, as I call it, before we learn like how to move the boat forward, we need to see like what's making it sink. Like, what holes do you have in your boat? What is draining you? So it's like, if we can tackle that first, like, let's fill in those holes and those gaps. So then you're sustained. Then, like you said, giving yourself that self-care is like, okay, I've put out some fires. Now I can, it's good to go. And I loved your analogy or your example of sitting in the bathroom, because it's so darn relatable, but that's what you needed in that season. And that's what's so powerful, ladies that are listening. It's like, not judging where you're at, but just, again, bringing that acceptance and realizing, like, in this season, this is what I need, and that's okay. And allowing yourself to have that need, and really asking yourself that question in every season, because the answer will change. What fuels my soul? Right? Like, what brings me? Because, Fiona, maybe it would be different now. Maybe sitting in your bathroom in the dark, either wouldn't give you that fuel, wouldn't feel as good, or maybe it's impractical. Maybe you can't do that. Maybe now it's like you need to go be around light. You need to be in the sunlight.
Yeah.
You need to go for a walk. Or so, yeah, it's really to bring that balance, Fiona. I love that you shared that, like all these beautiful steps. Like everyone listening, please pause this, rewind, re-listen to this episode as often as you need, and take notes, because there was some really amazing wisdom-filled moments here that I love that you gave, Fiona, some real practical advice and like things that women can really take home with them today and actually go to work and actually really start to feel that empowerment and see that this is possible. This is something that God's put in your heart. You have this vision, you have this desire, this purpose for a reason. And now it's just about walking in it and trusting him to lead you in it down the path of where he wants you to go every single day.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I love it. Hallelujah. Well, I have so enjoyed our conversation. I am so honored by our friendship, and I love that I get a chance to reach out to you and talk to you and connect with you, because you are so full of knowledge and so full of empowerment. And so I don't want to keep you all to myself. I feel like that would be a little, as much as I may want to, I don't want to do that. So I would love if you would share with the ladies listening, share with them how they can learn from you more and how they can connect and get in touch with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So my website is www.womanpowerwithin.com. And that's where I have all my programs and coaching that I offer. And I also have a free Facebook group. And this is where I kind of like give my wisdom and the value. And it's just a community for mums to also just come in and connect with one another as well. And you'll find that on Facebook. It's called Woman Power Within, Planning, Productivity, Wellbeing, and Faith. So basically in the title, I've put everything in there. You know, when you enter the group, you know what's going to be in there. So I'd encourage you guys to come connect with me, come and get like nuggets of wisdom from my group, and connect with other like-minded women as well.
Love that. I love that. You're like one of those advertisements that say no hidden fees, no, it's like you put it all out there. And that's so amazing though, because so often I think as moms, it is scary to jump out there and to know what is this thing going to be about, or who do I trust? And, thank you for doing that. And we've gotten to know you some today. So I know that there's going to be some women, not just walking, but running over to your resources. And ladies, if you're anything like me, you may be listening to this podcast while you're driving right now, while you're doing the dishes. Who knows? Maybe you've got your hands in bath water trying to keep a toddler still. No worries. We'll have all of her links in the show notes below so that you can just make it really simple on yourself. You can go ahead and hit it and you can get connected with Fiona right away. So Fiona, I've had such a great time with you today. I am truly going to re-listen to this and binge this episode because it's been so insightful and so encouraging to me. So on behalf of Mom Nation, I just want to thank you for offering your time, but also your presence to us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. The stuff that you are doing is amazing. I know that you're like a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I've seen like some of the stuff you've been doing, and I just believe that there's such a big calling on you, and you are going to touch so many women's lives out there, whether they're mums or not. I don't know why, but I see like it's not just mums. There are people who are going to be like, I don't have kids, but I want to connect with you. And so I just want to thank you for allowing God to use you the way, he's using you. And thank God for expanding your family, because I know like not long now, your family's it's going to be growing. And I know God's going to do amazing things in your family as well as your life as well.
Oh my gosh. See, ladies, how could you not want to connect with this kind of a presence in your life? So please go do so. And I just want to say thank you for everyone that's listened today, that's lent, Fiona and I your ears, but most of all your heart, that we honor that space that you've given, that you've given us today. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here on an episode of Mom Nation, where it is our heart and our desire to help you find balance and to raise those Jesus loving littles in exactly the way that your heart feels called. You're in the right space, you're in the right place, and know that you are worthy and you are loved. I'll see you again on another episode. Again, thank you for joining me today on Mom Nation.